texted me. It's a shock. All right, good evening, everybody. Oh, I can turn my microphone. Good evening, everyone. It's November 18th, 2015, regular meeting of the Lambertsville Unified School District Facilities Use Committee. Call this meeting to order at 6:30. Roll call. Matt Balzerini, I'm the chair. I'm here. Shay Nielsen.
Here.
Alvina Kaiser, CBO.
Here.
James Nolan, DMOT staff.
Here.
Erica Smith Payne, community member.
Here.
And Corey Struck, community member.
Here.
Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. First thing, facility use update. Item A is the facility use minutes from October 20th. They're in the packet. Everyone should have received them, and those have been submitted to the board at the last meeting. Thank you for that. Item B is facility usage reports. Alvina?
That starts on page 4, and they're the same reports we provide to you each time we meet, starting from July 1st up through the time period of when we release the packet. You can see, obviously, the heaviest usage is the multi-purpose room. And then on page 5, you can see the highest time, the 6 p.m. starts to decline by 9 p.m.
Do you have people that are in there between 10 and 11? Looks like. That's pretty late, huh? No?
No?
Okay.
I think it starts to drop down.
Drops off? Okay. Item C, denied applications. None. Item D, unapproved use notifications. Number 1, public during organization reserve time. This is a problem?
Yes, this is the problem that we were having, and it's later on the agenda to hopefully provide some kind of discount to junior Mustangs. Lori Robertson's well aware, and I'll let her report on that
Okay.
concern.
I guess we'll come back to that in a minute, I think, right? So later on here, later in the agenda? Is that right?
Yes,
Okay, we'll come back to that, Lori. Okay, item E, change of tier status notification.
we had none this time to report.
Okay, item F, civic permit software update.
I know that we are trying to schedule a date to meet with him. He mentioned that there's some upgrades. I was hoping for the report upgrade of by tier, because I think it would be important for us to know how much usage by tier we're receiving, but that didn't make it on this particular upgrade. They said that there will be the possibility of applicants being able to cancel their own requests if allowed by the district office. So, I mean, I think as long as they do it within the time frame that we've allowed them to, that we should go ahead and, if it allows us to put a lockup period, to go ahead and have them deny it online. Because then it'll open up that availability for somebody else.
And again, the less we have to have someone manually do, the better. And as long as they can't cancel after the 48-hour period or whatever it is.
Correct.
We should, anything and everything we could do to make it so that the system runs itself and Lori's spending less time on it, the better.
Yes.
And then we're working on getting a meeting offline set up so we can meet with the vendor and hopefully have some information come back about.
Early December, maybe?
Yes, we're
is
looking
what we
at
were
that.
looking at. They're also mentioning that the permits page should load faster, we hope. And then they're going to also offer additional payment methods, so that's something that I'll probably work with Lori to try to get credit card payments, because right now they're issuing checks or they're bringing them into the district office, so that should make that process go a lot quicker as well. And then also maps of the sites to be able to put
Will we charge
those.
the fee for our credit card payments?
I will find that out. I know we are with the
We
food
should just,
service
whatever the fee
program.
is, just make it
Almost
part of it. We are, it's a percentage of something, so we should just make sure that's part of it. If they're gonna pay by credit card, they can pay for the convenience of it.
Perfect. I'll make sure that we do
A
that.
couple of bucks.
It's like 2.5 to 3%.
Yeah.
And then, of course, adding the maps to the sites,
Sure.
because we don't have that.
On the same note, what about invoicing? Is there anything in the pipeline to do a single invoice for like Royal Kings, for example, or my organization, for example? I'm going to get dozens of invoices, and then you guys are going to want like dozens of checks. Well, if there's a way to print a single invoice I know that there's not, Lori, we've talked, but if we can, if that can be
the
put
only
into
problem that I
requests.
could foresee with that is we can't do it now, but the only problem I could foresee is that if they pay for all their events up front and one does happen to get canceled, then we would have to turn around and do the refund. But yeah, there isn't currently, but it's not to say we can't.
Right, I think that'd be a worthwhile thing for most of the organizations.
Monthly or quarterly for some of the organizations that are doing something, to have to do, weekly or semi-monthly ones would drive me crazy too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have the most or the most bookings anyway, but we've probably got 12 or 20 or so. But I mean, I'd imagine someone like the Mustangs or MHSI probably giving you like 3 dozen individual checks for $24.
Pay a month in advance, so, okay. No, but those are the only software updates I have.
Okay. Item G, reimbursement to organizations. Number one, Junior Mustangs, and this is it,
This is the
the
issue.
public using Altamont Field.
Correct. In page 6 of your packet, they had the Altamont Field reserved from August until November 26th. And during that time, it's either been other organizations, which I've already addressed with those, or just public users in general, that they have to kick off little kids or families because they impede on the time. So they go over and they ask them, and then it becomes quite confrontational for them. So it's been almost their entire reservation that they've had other people on the field, so they never got really the full use of the field that they were paying for.
I absolutely don't have a problem, reimbursing their funds, and as far as keeping the public off the fields, I don't think, we can't do that. That's part of the master plan. We encourage that. We want people to use the facilities. However, when the facilities are reserved, that's why we have the application process, and that's why we want them to have their permit in hand. They should be calling the sheriff. We need to get the sheriff's department to come out, and if we have to have them come to a meeting to make sure that we've done everything we have to do so they can take enforcement action, maybe we should do that. In fact, let's get the sheriff to come to our next meeting. We'll get Lieutenant George.
Yeah, I don't see any good solution for preventing the public from being there. You just have to ask them to leave. Some of them
Yeah,
are
and
going
if,
to be not as
ask
nice.
them to leave, and if they don't, show them the permit. If they don't, then we have to call the sheriff's department and have the sheriff's department explain to them that it is the school district property, and when we rent it out, it's ours. It's not available to the public at that time.
So how much are they asking for to be reimbursed? All of it?
No, it wasn't for all of it. That's why I was bringing it to you for what was deemed reasonable. I just wanted to show you, because you guys like to know the numbers of what they've paid and then usage, and
They paid $630.
it would have been 610. I'm sorry, 630. So with the $40 $590 was their cost with the $40 administration fee, which
So what did they want us to reimburse them?
It didn't stay,
what's-
did it?
didn't state. They were just
No opening
concerned, and
offer.
they thought it was unfair that people were using it while they were there paying for it. So
I'm just gonna say, I'll be the heartless, callous individual up here to say, we explained the process, we gave them the permit, we've told them, and it's in the handbook, if you have problems, you're supposed to take those measures yourselves. I get that they've decided not to. I don't know why that means we have to give them some of their money back. That's just my perspective. I'll vote to do it because it is nice. It's the neighborly thing to do. I would also say, one, we don't want to set a precedent for this, and two, this should be the last time we ever do it.
So they didn't,
I don't know.
Makes sense.
they weren't denied usage of the field, is that correct?
no, but they weren't being able to use it to the full potential for their football practice. So they would have to use half the field and run it, and then ask people to leave, and then it just.
I've been there during their football practice. They don't use the whole field anyway. I would say 10 to 20% maybe, like max for a
That's what
refund.
I was
But,
thinking, my opinion. was
if we're going to give them any sort of refund at all, like no greater than 20%.
But a one-time only, this is it, you need to take a stand with your permit, call the sheriff if there's a problem.
And I know those guys, I'd be okay with that.
It's hard.
It's $120, it's $120, give or take. It's,
Yeah.
for me, it's just more the principle of, we've done what we can do. You have to enforce your rights yourself. And if they choose not to, I'm not sure why that burden falls back on us. But I'm the jerk.
The only other alternative that we're gonna have is to hire a security company to be out there, and then those fees are gonna be assessed. And
Yeah, they'll go up
So,
huge.
Plus, at that field, you can rent the track, and the track's there. There's no good way to prevent the public from using the only accessible track in town. They're just going to be there. And when you go there,
Has that too.
even when I go there to run, or one of my friends or the other running club members go there to run, if they bring their kids, the kids play. They play on the field, they play on the track, they play around the area. It just happens.
I will say, the last time I was there and saw that, it was not usually kids on the field. There was usually a semi-organized soccer group that was
Right.
taking up the other half of the field. Most of the kids and the parents go play on the playground while the kids, that's where my kids.
Right, I agree.
There's options there that exist as long as, they're being reasonable about it. But if the visiting folks aren't being reasonable, you have to stand up for yourself, so.
Yeah, it's certainly a soccer thing. An organized soccer is not acceptable.
Is there any way to place on the permit the sheriff's phone number?
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
I think what we need to do is have a additional sheet or on the permit itself, verbiage that states right on there that the holder of this permit has sole use of the designated area as noted on this permit. All other users must vacate the area. If they do not vacate the area, it will be considered trespassing under Penal Code XX, whatever it is.
602.
And the sheriff will be called. And the sheriff will be called and have the sheriff's phone number right on it.
I love it.
I like
100%
it.
agree.
I like it. That's exactly what
We'll
needs to
do
happen.
it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go back to the reimbursement then. Do we want to do a reimbursement? Do we want to recommend that the board do a reimbursement? I think it's probably more accurate, right?
Well, no, this is a.
Oh,
this
we
be
can vote on
handled-
that.
We
I
have the
don't know.
authority to do that, and I think, I agree with the conversation that there should be, they need to take some responsibility in it, so,
I'm okay with 20%.
I heard
It's not a huge
20%, that's,
number.
I'm fine with that. Okay. Is that harder to do, or is it, okay.
And then we'll make sure to implement, maybe we'll reissue the permits for that location for these individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the new language.
Is there a certain date or day of the week or time that this is happening? Do you know?
It's been almost every day. They have it Tuesday through Tuesday through
During
Friday.
so it's during the week.
Yeah, it is. It's during the week. It's not on the weekends.
Yeah, 6 to 8.
You're thinking what I'm thinking.
I may go for a drive tomorrow.
Oh, I was like, I don't know what you guys are thinking.
Shane does.
I may just go for a walk.
Shane knows what I'm thinking. Okay.
I should go for, well, I mean, walk to it.
Yes.
But you're right, I could go for a run too.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay.
I haven't been for a run in a while.
Perfect. Finance report, item A is the staff hours report.
Which are
Well, I think we have the
ridiculous.
finance in there. That was, mine doesn't have page numbers.
It's the last packet.
Over 50% of our day. No big
Right
deal.
after the invoice, page number 6.
No big deal, right, Lori? It's not like we pay you to do things that are providing, services for the education of our students.
It's still too much.
She's,
Way
yes,
too
and
much.
now because Lori has been impacted just trying to do some of the other duties, we're now training Rita to assist fielding some of those calls because there's just not enough time for Lori to do the regular position in addition to, so we now have started the training with Rita as well to assist.
Is there any way to look to get a volunteer or a part-time person that could do this? I mean, I gotta think that at 4 hours a day, that the school district might be able to find a way to slightly increase or utilize the $40 application fee to help offset the cost to the district, to have some person whose hours are 10 to 2, Monday through Friday, to just do this.
And then they can be contacted during that time because
Exactly.
poor
We
Lori
need
is
to know
still
it.
getting outside the hours in the
Exactly.
manual, she's being contacted.
Something
they
I
know
think
where
we
she lives.
might need to recommend to the full board that we pursue, Because at this point, at 4 hours a day, it's ridiculous, and if the $40 processing fee is not enough, we find a way to make it enough, whatever that processing fee is, to help offset that cost.
Tell you what, let's hold off on, let's see if we can get this software company to,
Yes.
I want to try and see if we can address these issues one by one that you're dealing, because I'm looking, it's all the same theme. It seems like it's all basketball. At least,
It's a lot of communication back and forth and then dealing with the schools and placing them. It's a lot of communication.
yeah, if we can get the software to do this for us, then we wouldn't need let's try that first. And then if that doesn't work, then maybe we'll come back to
But
it.
even if we did a part-time temporary position for the next few months.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Something to give her some,
Well, right now, and this is in the update as well, Mountain House Youth Basketball is now fully scheduled. So I'll be moving forward tomorrow with the Muslim Association and Royal Kings, and we will be done now until next year with them.
She should start
So it was
soon.
just this,
okay.
so I
So
think
now
we're
gonna
going to
start
see it
moving
decline.
into the fields, right?
Yes.
Baseball.
That's right, we're starting all
But
over.
that's much easier,
because there's so
because I
many
don't have to worry about, it's blocks of time at certain places.
I like that idea of trying to get someone in, especially during that window.
That
where
peak period.
Where the beginning of the year.
Well, and now that we have, the more data that we're getting, this is great. We can start trying to figure out, where the peaks are. We know.
Yeah, you know what, I'd like to get your report, you have this hourly report, and I know you've saved it, let's get that report to show from the beginning of the school year. So we can kind of see, just like we're seeing this report, to see how much, what during the day we're using, and what the fields are. To get yours, okay, so February was this many hours, March was this many hours.
So
June
break
was
it by
this many-
month?
If, I would like to
Okay.
see that, because it would help us decide, we could look to go to the full board and say, okay, we know coming up in August, we're gonna need this because.
Okay, I can do that. I can make the modification to that, my timesheet.
Especially if it comes out like the software can't do some of the things we want to do, let's get ahead of it for next year with the full board as opposed to,
Okay.
Sure.
Yes, I can do that.
after a month of you wanting to kill people. You know, that's how I'd be.
She keeps smiling.
Yes, thank you for your patience. Item B, proposed expenditures from collected funds.
Yes, I have listed some items there, but we actually can remove 5. That's not an issue.
Backup.
Yeah, we got a recommendation from the principal that that was unnecessary, so we thought that was good news. We are having some concerns from some of the sites, especially with the microphones and the cables, worrying that if there's some damage done, that they do not have a spare to be able to accommodate, especially if an event happens on the weekend, having the equipment available for their use. So I thought, well, we do have some funds that we've been collecting from this facility use organizations. Why not buy and keep it separately? The custodians can keep it because they're the ones who do the check-in, check-out, and keep these particular items available just for the organizers, the organizations when they come in. So this is just a price estimate that we received. I think Mr. Reed provided these estimates. We're recommending buying, an extra microphone set at each site, any cables that are necessary. There's sometimes a projector needed, perhaps just keeping one set aside for them for their use. And then, as I mentioned, the controller scoreboard is not non-issue now, no expense. That's for both of those. Oh, Cuesta also is missing their baseball bases, but we think they've been missing for a while. So I'm suggesting maybe buy them their bases and then make sure that they bring them in when they're not using them.
Yeah, I say if we purchase them, then we need to have a process for making sure nothing
Do
happens.
you not
to them.
have a job box or something like that on site for those kinds of things? Job
A box.
It's just a metal box that we have locks to. Most schools will have the
Bethany
public
has
box
one.
and the school box next to it.
Bethany has one by their field. I don't remember seeing one at Altamont.
No, there's nothing at Lammersville. They usually put it with the rest of their athletic equipment where that's stored.
Yeah, something we need to look into.
I-
Getting a box for those schools also.
It's just something that our staff has access to. They have the keys, they have the combination, and then,
So that was the
then you put it all away.
recommendation I had of this list. And then item number 2, we found that the multipurpose room at the high school needed to have several coats, was it 5 coats in the multipurpose room at the high school?
Yes, that didn't happen during
No,
the
and the original
construction.
specs had only had 2, so they met the specs.
What are we talking about now?
Item
The
2.
floor? Okay.
Item 2, the floor, sorry, I was getting there. The multipurpose room at the high school, they met the specs of applying 2 coats on the floor. Sealer, thank you. And we found now that we need to have it already redone. It's $13,000 to have those coats put back on the floor. But the recommendation is for that $13,000 is to put the number of coats that will last longer. So my hope is that we're using this also for outside organizations that maybe, of course, I don't expect the whole bill to be charged to them, but maybe a portion, even if it was just a couple thousand, to apply towards this rather than hitting the general fund.
I'm gonna go and ask that you bring this before the full board as well, because I'm curious as to why the specs differ from the manufacturer's recommendation, and if that is something that our architect.
It was done, I can tell you why it was done to save money.
Yeah,
Was it a cost-saving effort? Okay.
was it approved by the full board?
I have no
All
idea.
Is it
part of the full
change item?
project.
That's what I'm asking.
What are those?
Change items.
Change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
change order
orders,
request.
yeah.
So if it wasn't approved in one of those, that's what I'm trying to find out. So I'd like to know for the full board if it was,
Okay.
not for this group, but for the full
Yeah,
board.
definitely. needs to
Because if
go
we
on.
didn't approve it and they changed it, then I have a problem.
They likely approved it, because I even
We
checked with.
approved it, then we approved it. That's a different thing.
I did double check with the architect. Said, hey, was this all part of it? And he said, yes, it was.
I just,
Well, they have the cost savings, they did.
right, we
that.
have
They did-
those sheets, I
yeah.
just need to see it, that's all.
Okay.
So we'll definitely make this a board item.
Well, you don't even need to make it a board item. If you could show me that was on a sheet somewhere that we approved, I'm fine.
I think the board should have the discussion about it, to let them know where we're at with the floor. I mean, if we made that decision as a board to,
Save money and it's costing us money.
yes,
And
exactly.
as you recall, a lot of those change orders came in after the
Yeah,
fact.
that's where I'm going. Yeah, there was a whole issue with some of those change orders that
That's
we
correct.
didn't approve that were approved, and I don't want to know if this was one of them.
Okay.
So then that way, the board can have that discussion about,
Why is there one microphone completely different from the other microphones?
They have different equipment.
Oh, that would make sense.
We have to make sure we have a microphone that will work with the equipment that's at the site.
Probably the older version. Yeah, it makes the most sense. Okay. I mean, from my perspective, that's what these things, that's what we did this for. That's why we charged fees, is to
Exactly.
be able to purchase some of this stuff, so.
yeah, looks good
I
to me.
agree with Shane.
Anybody have any concern about this? Okay.
And we can remove the portable controller and the controller off the list. So we're looking at a projector at each site and microphones and cables.
The controllers are for the scoreboards, and they do use them at the K through 8 sites on basketball
Oh,
days.
so the 6 at 400 are needed.
The 400. It was a yes, they've only used them at Cuesta and then at the high school and the small gym. So they haven't asked for them at any of the other sites, but I was giving you the full because I know Shane likes to know all of it.
Darn right. So the controllers then are to control the scoreboards at each.
Correct. Now, the one up above, the portable controller and scoreboard, that is everything plus, it's the courtside scoreboard on the floor, but,
That's what they said they don't want anymore.
correct. It's just the controller for the one on the
Backup
wall.
controller at each school, which we should have anyway, with or without this. Because if we're trying to run an event and it goes down, we're unable to use it.
That's
We should have
exactly.
backups for these things.
Are any of them compatible with each other by chance, or are they all different?
I'll verify with
I
IT.
don't know, yeah.
Because I would hate to buy 6 of them if we could just grab one from a, you
And
know,
move
have
it
a couple
around.
extra in the mix.
Okay, I'll get clarification for you.
The other thing is I hate to have this one in reserve and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, let's get a new scoreboard, and then we lost the whole.
That's true.
So,
I like that thinking.
because as technology changes, they have to get, I'm sure they're making improvements on, right?
I mean, if you do that, though, then the concern would be if you're having simultaneous events at different schools and they go down in certain spots, because you'd be keeping them probably at the district office, or you'd want
Yeah,
to
it's
sort
really
of
hard
give
to-
them to the
do
person
you
at
have
school.
time to
So,
get it down there
so the most convenient way from a disaster recovery perspective would be to just have one at each site.
If it's, I mean,
And
it's,
it's not, I guess it's not that, I mean, it's not,
it's not that much money. That's what I'm looking at, but.
okay.
So, yes?
Yes.
now? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, the 5,000, if we wanted $5,000 scoreboards, we'd have a talk.
That would be a more interesting conversation, probably.
Information, discussion items, the facility use handbook.
Yeah, just,
The board approved amendment number 2, if I could talk. Amendment number 2 on the 4th of November. Number 2 is custodian rate change, $28 an hour beginning with new applications. So this was something that we discussed, that we made policy in the handbook, that when their salary goes up,
right.
the change.
And then it occurred to me, it isn't just custodians, it's the food services. So it's anybody who's, it's already in the handbook. If the rate increases, it'll increase also. So any new apps will be affected by that.
We actually have the rate in the handbook,
We
right?
do.
Okay, so that needs to come back as an amendment with all the new rates for all the, whatever
Yeah, that
positions.
should just be
3.
something we approve July, August, September, whenever the contract negotiations are done.
Yeah, as soon as that, yeah.
Well,
I guess we have to.
If they're ever done.
Well, CSEA's is done.
Good point. CSEA is done.
CSEA got, they got it done early.
Not exactly.
And then custodian coverage at the high school for events 2A and 3. Oh, 2A through 3, I'm sorry.
I don't know if I wanted Jim or Lori to discuss the issues that you're having when organizations are there at the high school.
The situation with this one is the fact that we have organizations that are using the facilities at the high school. The high school is a very large, spread-out campus. It's almost impossible for the custodian to monitor what's going on in a certain building when his duties takes him into another building. And the people that are renting are very needy, let's say. And what happens is this custodian, the only one we have there on Saturday, which has specific jobs that have to be done, because it's the only time they can do them, is being pulled away from these duties.
And it's above and beyond the ones that are already paying for it. So it's from it's basically the tier ones that are also using the facilities, is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
What
when
does
we have
that mean?
multiple organizations, is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
And we've run into the case already where, when they're using the gym, you have to monitor what's going on because they take food in there, and you have to have someone there at all times watching what's going on. And also because of the way the campus, they can walk out any doors and then get into the quad area, and they can walk around anywhere in the campus, which we don't want either.
My perspective is we're charging them for the staff member's time to be there. We should put a staff member there.
We're not.
I know,
on
but I'm saying,
Saturday.
this is what we're paying, but they're paying for it.
They're not.
They're not.
No.
Because it's Saturday. And what,
Well, this is only on Saturdays?
yes, the issue is, yeah.
We probably should have put that on there.
And, right, so that's becoming the issues because when we made this, we were trying to save the organization's costs. So we said custodians are working and we'll be able to, but
But they do pay 2 hours prior to the end of the custodian, which gets off at 5, so we start billing them at 3 and then after 5.
for the
So,
cleanup.
but if they're there at 8, then we've got the one custodian who's already doing their own job and multiple duties, and we've got nobody dedicated to manage that event. Kind of like we do with the stadium. We have somebody on site to kind of watch it and monitor it, but inside facilities, and some of them get a lot of usage.
I mean, if we need someone watching the multipurpose room the entire day, or the gym the entire day, in the event that someone rents the gym the entire day, then the organization probably pay for that person to be there.
That's the direction that we're,
Yeah, I absolutely, I agree.
Yeah,
I just
So-
wasn't sure how much monitoring was required, but if they have to be there, then yeah.
I think our discussion when we were talking about this was provide the people who are going to use it enough opportunity to show that we could do these things within reason, and if it's coming out that we can't, we need this for our facilities, that's what it has to be. If you want to use the facilities, you got to pay for the person, and we'll put someone there. Can we find someone? Because that's going to be the next question is, what I would hate to see happen is we tell them they have to have someone there, they're willing to pay for it, and we can't put someone there, and therefore we have to decline a request. That's where I'm concerned.
I mean, the other alternative would be like a zero tolerance policy, right? If you rent the gym and someone in your organization brings food into the gym or something along those lines, you can't rent anymore. You guys are done for the day.
Or done for,
Or, whatever, yeah, just like zero
So far,
tolerance.
that has not been a problem.
I could see it being
It
one.
may
though.
become a problem in the future, but in the handbook, we say if we don't have the correct people available, we would have to decline it because of that.
right.
We are investigating, looking at other people to be possibly used on our list of people that can be, the district viewing or helping out.
Some requirements that we have.
watch basketball while I study. I'm okay with it.
I guess it almost depends on the event. I mean, we've had people that just come in
But
to
I don't
do
want
practice.
to go to that point. That's where I
Right.
run into a concern is because then it's not going to be, the public won't see it as it's the event, it's the organization. And we don't
That's
want to get
true.
into a situation, if you're using the large gym or the small gym at the high school on a Saturday, we need to have someone there to make sure it's taken care of. That's it.
Okay.
And I get, these are for organizations for 2A and above.
Yeah.
So the tier 1 organization still would be able to use the on-site custodian.
Why?
Yes. So I have the same question.
Well, that's
Why
why it's
would they?
listed. Is that,
listed
is
it
that,
that way.
are the tier 1
So-
organizations an issue?
So tier 1 would be boosters. Okay, now you have to remember, sometimes these,
Yeah.
so let's say the foundation, the booster has an event, they're tier 1, but if they have an event where they have a high-risk activity, they're bumped into a 2A. They got to get coverage.
You mean like basketball?
If-
Or like any sport, right? Isn't basically any sport a high-risk activity?
For a booster, could be their fundraiser, right?
Or do the sports not bump to high risk?
Tier
I
1
thought they
as
did.
basketball, if it's a fundraiser. But if you're having an event, what is the one that,
Open flames, cooking, it
any barbecue pits, any of that,
wasn't just sport.
No, okay, so like a
Bouncy
bouncy houses. I remember it was kind of long.
those then bump the tier 1 into a tier 2A. Then you would be facing these fees at the high
Okay.
school.
Then I guess my question would be if as a tier 1 organization I decide that what I want to do is have a dodgeball tournament and I want to use the small gym, why wouldn't we need someone there enforcing the fact that there's no food allowed inside of the small gym? Is it just because I'm a tier 1 organization? I mean, I literally am a tier 1 organization, and I still feel like that might be a little bit too much leeway. I'm not sure that. I mean, like you said, they keep calling him back, and he isn't able to do his regular job. And someone needs to be there to make sure no food's coming in there, or nobody roams out into the quadring like that. It might just be too much trust. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, this is an issue that we've gone round and round on several different times, so.
I didn't know about the 24 cover. I think it just changes in this case because you mentioned you needed to have someone like in the gym basically all the time monitoring because of the rules in there and the access to other spots. I think in general, it makes more sense. Like the NPR, for example, like you probably don't need someone hanging out in the NPR the entire time someone's having an event in the NPR because you can have food there, you can have other stuff there, right? But in the gym, there are a bunch of special rules that we've got that are going to keep our gym in great shape. We're doing the same thing with the stadium. If the gym's got the same sort of rules, then I feel like we should apply the same sort of rules to the gym as far as someone paying. Do we not charge Tier 1A for the stadiums? Or do we charge them
Tier
for a
1A
custodian there?
hasn't used the stadium.
Tier 1's never used it. If I did want to use it, would I be charged for an on-site custodian for the stadium?
At the stadium, you have to have a custodian.
Requires someone.
That one does require because, and you know what, maybe the conversation should shift more into what you're talking about, the multipurpose rooms. I mean, if it's an NPR, do we really need to have somebody monitoring the NPR at all times?
Well, remember, part of our responsibility is also to monitor the restrooms and make sure they're supplied and everything is there. We have spills all the time. We have to clean those up right away. There has to be someone available for that.
I mean, I feel like spills is one thing because that's going to take a minimal amount of time. Most of the time, it's not going to be like a
Constant supervision thing.
It's the constant supervision thing that I'm kind of hung up on. With the idea that we need constant supervision in the gym because that creates an obvious burden on the person who's supposed to be working there. Because if he has to be in the gym to watch all the people in the gym, then he can't really do any work. I agree that foundations and guests are very needy, so they will ask for a lot of things. But at the very least, if the person's working and they call him over and he comes and he cleans up a spill or whatever, that's going to take him 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe an hour of his day probably, like on a bad day. But if he has to hang out at the gym all day, we're talking about like his entire day.
I think the role changes. I think with the gyms, their role is more being security than custodian because they have dual roles,
Right.
but it sounds like that's the issue is security, right?
Monitoring.
Well, it's the whole picture. I mean, that's a piece of it, but it's everything else involved with making sure that the proper care is given. I mean, we're trying to protect our asset.
Absolutely.
And we want to make sure that they're happy. I mean, they're renting from us, so if they all of a sudden run out of toilet paper, somebody's got to get it. And because the campus is so big, we have to leave one of the radios with them so they can get a hold of us because we could be anywhere. So when they have that radio, it's like, I can get them anytime I want them. And that's what happens.
So I think really the only question here is whether Corey's point of why are the tier 1 organizations being treated differently is that equitable? Is that
It sounds like they shouldn't be.
I mean, at least not for the gym. I mean, and if we need constant supervision, we should. I'm feeling like we should make the rules for the gym similar to the rules for the stadium because they both require an element of constant supervision. The NPR is a little bit more, it's more resilient, for lack of a better term,
concrete?
than the gyms are. So we might want to look at adding similar rules for the gyms as we have for the stadium.
I don't think I can disagree.
So what I'm hearing is all organizations that's using the gym will have to pay for custodial.
Large and small.
If the case is that we need someone there doing security or something along those lines, it wouldn't necessarily have to be a custodian if there's some other path we can take with that as far as someone in there all day if it's security or something like that.
Well,
I don't know, but
the custodian, their title is custodian / security. So
Okay, so
when I
say-
say
okay.
custodian, it's more for security, like you're talking about.
It does both.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's what I would probably recommend.
Any objection to that? So let's make that change to the board. And we'll monitor the NPR, and if that becomes an issue also, we can revisit it.
Okay.
And let's, like you said, protect our asset. Let's protect that gym first and foremost. I just want to make a note.
I'm a tier 1 organization. Making it so the other tier 1
my
organizations
only
also,
thing
so it
is-
just makes more sense.
It feels to
Yeah.
me like your tier 1 organizations tend to be, I would think, more responsible because they're compromised of all students. They're students. The other groups don't necessarily have to have a majority or even any number of students from the district. So, you know, there could be, that's the only argument I can make to treat the tier ones differently. And even that's just kind of like, that's kind of weak, really.
I mean, we're already treating them differently in the fact that they're getting priority registrations. They get, you
Lower
know,
rates on a
they
lot
get
of
lower
stuff.
rates
Have to
the
remember
majority of the
school site is
time.
also a tier 1.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're not going to charge the school site itself a Saturday thing, right?
So
Really, any other, teacher. The coach himself actually would cover the school side as far as security at the gym, right?
we just need to make sure they meet those qualifications that we have here in the handbook.
Because they're not paying for the use of the room. 'cause but they would just be paying, just like they do at the K through 8 sites. They pay for the custodian off hours, but it would be
the
somebody
AAU
during that time.
Organizations, okay.
Well, I mean, sorry, one more thing. On the AAU organizations, are you saying then that we would want to charge them to use the gym on the Saturdays, and currently we're not wanting to charge them? Is that what you're
AAU
suggesting?
falls under the Mountain House High School athletics.
Right.
So that's a school organization. That's not its own foundation or PTA.
So let's say they want to play basketball on a Saturday. Are we saying that we would charge them for the custodian on Saturdays under the proposed revision,
They're
or
a
we would
district
not?
employee with keys.
Because because the coach is a district employee, then we would not need to charge. Is that right? Okay, that's cool.
Recognized as a tier 1 organization, aren't they?
Right.
No, so they'll get charged.
But they
That's what I'm
that's
saying.
what he's saying, is they shouldn't.
They shouldn't, I
They-
agree.
they
So
shouldn't.
That, I think we need to make an exception to the rule.
We could change the verbiage to say you need, not necessarily custodian / security, you would need some sort of a school employee that meets X credential on site to
That's why we.
monitor,
that's why we
secure,
didn't
whatever,
include Tier 1.
Okay, yeah.
as opposed to,
All right, I'm on, okay, I get what you're putting out there. So let's say something along the lines of not custodian, but, school, district approved, staff for security.
Because then that would allow Ben to say, yes, this is good, or no, this isn't good, or you or Kurt to say, yes, this works, no, this doesn't work, and.
or even the basketball coach could, I mean, the
Well,
basketball
whole
coach in
point
that case would be the person most of the time, I would think.
Ben could say, yeah, it's okay for the basketball coach, we're fine with that.
So my follow-up question, is that for all organizations or just tier 1 Tier 1 only?
I don't want, this is where we ran into issues and why we're here, was district staff was allowing events to occur, and they were the supervision, and it wasn't necessarily all through an approved channel. It's gotta be approved,
So it has
the
to go through
district
the
staff
channels.
and the site staff need to know about it and be okay with that person, or they have to hire a custodian. That's the way it should be.
Right, I don't see a problem with them being the supervision, but provided that they go through the proper channels to reserve the space.
And that's all I'm talking about, is just for the supervision piece. So if someone involved that works for the district is in a tier 3 organization and they're there, are they still gonna get charged for the custodian?
Yes,
Okay, we need to make sure that's articulated in the update.
yeah, sorry.
Tier 1
I
organizations
just wanna make sure
have the
we're clear,
opportunity for
otherwise
other
it's gonna be
district
right
staff.
back in our lap again.
Yeah, I'm just trying not to
That's
charge
the
like
way
the
it needs
AAUs
to
like that. It's-
Right.
The only opportunities for other district staff exist only in those tier 1 organizations. If they're not a tier 1 organization, then they must pay for and have provided for them by the district, the custodian / security.
And they should still meet the qualifications that we have in the handbook in order to be able to provide that.
And fully trained.
Exactly.
And that's the handbook articulates all the training, level of training.
Coaches of that, right? I mean,
Well,
that's.
and we should,
What I mean by training is that they need to know that they have to fill out our check-in and check-out forms.
Yes.
That's part of the process. And that has not been happening with district employees.
Okay, well.
Right.
Right,
So we've been trying to meet, I think we went out to another elementary site last week on one that wasn't always making sure those check-in, check-out forms, so, they're
I haven't
clear
really
now. They're
filled any
new.
out.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. And one of the policies not,
There's a lot of information, right?
So then ideally, the tier 1 would say something like, we would just say reserve the space at the cost of, custodian cost or providing like a district employee, right? This would be an option for tier 1, but not for the other ones. Other ones would say rent on Saturday at a cost of X. Right, basically, okay.
and I also think that you need to publish a list of people that are certified.
I think
Through
it is addressed in our handbook.
It would also be nice if there was something in the handbook as far as how you could become certified for the other.
It's in there.
It is in
It's
there.
in-
We have it
it's in
articulated yeah, it's in the handbook.
That's what was headed that direction. Oh, yeah, it's here.
No, we don't have a
Page
copy of that. I have it
17.
Oh, we do have a copy.
A select list of district employees approved in advance by the Facility Use Committee may open and close at the site at which they are assigned on their regular workday, because we discussed this too at a previous meeting. If they are certified by the district office is properly trained. Training certification will include, and there's a list A through J.
Oh, okay.
So if it's approved on their normal workday, if it's a weekend, they would still have to get a custodian then, in that instance, because they'd have to pay for somebody, because it's not a normal workday for most district employees.
And then it says here, approved district employee will ensure the facility is cleaned after the event.
Yeah, but like I say, we can,
Otherwise, a custodian will be assigned to the event at the cost of the user.
At the cost of the user? Oh, right, I know what that means. Okay.
So we need to see a list of who qualifies. as
Right,
those-
so maybe what
those
we'll do
people.
is we'll just send out, because it says here, the administrator and or teacher contacts the CBO if they are interested in the training certification. So maybe we'll take that entry and provide it to the teachers, not the teachers, the principals at the sites, and saying, hey, this is in our handbook, do you have anybody who's willing? Let me know, this is what they would need.
Perfect. And then we should have a list that comes out, I don't know, yearly or whenever. We should probably have a list, and then anytime someone gets added to the list, we can update the list.
Yes.
But have an ongoing list of, hey, this person meets the qualifications. They've had A through J in this, by the handbook. They're qualified. They can be used to fulfill this role.
And then just make sure all the coaches meet those requirements.
and that's what I'd say, that's Ben's gotta, or the vice principal's gotta get on, making sure that interior sports coaches.
So in your free time,
In those other 4 hours a day, you're not working.
yeah, that you're not doing.
So, I guess my next question then be, if this is only going to apply to the gyms at the high school, would the same sort of abilities apply to, say, MPR usage on a weekend at a K through 8?
Well, this does, yeah, that particular list, it applies district-wide.
So if,
Because the other sites don't
So,
have
for
a custodian
instance-
on a Saturday like a high school does. That's the only reason.
okay, so you need so you would need the custodian on a Saturday, no matter what, in another site, because they have to clean the location after you've left.
They have to open and.
Right, okay. Okay, cool. I'm good.
Where are we again?
We're at MHHS Athletics, so
Yes.
5B.
I think we resolved that.
It's
Yeah, it's resolved. It's resolved
item B is
now.
resolved.
It's resolved.
All right, great job.
Item C, application. Item C, application process for fundraising and charity events, high-risk activities.
I wanted to mention that that I met with Dr. Gill about the fundraising process, because as you know, we've changed that process where the application comes to her, she approves it, provides it to the board. Well, we were finding through Facebook that some of these events were having items that were considered high-risk activities and were not disclosed on the original application. So we're adding that. Was that you?
I'm honestly not sure what was the high risk. Was it not me? Oh, okay.
There's wild and domesticated animals.
That
That's
was
definitely-
that was
That's
not me.
considered-
Definitely Corey. When Corey's there,
Corey's there, that's the problem. You have that every time.
It's considered a high-risk activity, and then
Someone did that.
extreme risk activities come to the board already. That's funny.
Maybe Quest is carnivore.
so what's the solution, I guess?
So we're adding that process to the form when they submit their application. Are you having these types of activities? And we're gonna list them out, which are high risk and which are extreme risk. Because extreme risk actually have to get a higher insurance, $5 million for,
And we've articulated high risk versus extreme risk in this form.
What she's talking about, making it a checklist of, if you have these events.
part of it. No, right off the bat, I think we'll have like a little box at the bottom that defines what a high risk or an extreme risk activity would be, because the extreme, it says here, before allowing domesticated wild animals, in addition to the certificate of insurance, an endorsement must be made attaching, naming Lambertville Unified as additional insured. I was trying to find the part, sorry, I thought I had it. High-risk activities include, but not limited to, athletic events, cooking. So we talked about athletic, that addresses yours.
You guys just agreed that a basketball game was not a high risk event
It
earlier.
is. It is. This is athletic events. Cooking, serving food, using food service equipment in open flames. Then extreme hazardous, this is extreme hazardous, trampolines, bungees, and jumping devices. Aircraft, parachutes, domesticated wild animals, rodeo, racing, circuses, climbing walls, deep fat fryers, dunk tanks, and bull rides. These extreme high-risk uses require additional insurance.
Sorry, back to the, I'm sorry, I know we've
Yes.
gone over this before, but on the cooking, what was the cooking section? Cooking what?
Cooking, serving food, using food service, that's a high risk. So there's the barbecue, the open, that's considered a high risk. So that would bump.
Right, no, I mean, I guess, what, is a hot plate a high risk? I'm not sure, for example.
If you're.
Open
if
flame, open
anything-
flame, I totally get. Barbecue, I
Yes.
totally get.
Anything outside of using the kitchen, because you would pay extra for that already. If you're doing something inside with warming plates or, what are the burners?
That's basically what I'm asking. Like a warming plate is basically what I'm asking about, yeah.
Yes, that would be considered high risk,
So that bumps it into a tier 2A.
Because it's cooking.
Interesting.
because it's outside the norm.
Next question. You keep mentioning a form. Yeah, I've never seen this form.
So how do you let anyone know you're having a fundraiser?
I send a cells from a spreadsheet
So
that
I
I've
saw a
made.
spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's a cell spreadsheet that they
Right.
were adding another column to, so that must be it.
I mean, that's not a form. That's
Yeah.
a spreadsheet.
It's a spreadsheet then, okay.
Probably should be a form that you fill out.
Right, if they're going to call it a form, or that we're going to call it a form, then it
She
probably
did
should
have
be a
you're
form.
right, a spreadsheet that had columns.
Right,
And then
that's
they were
what
gonna
I'm
add the
used to.
high risk and extreme risk options, so low, high, extreme, but define these items.
Well, why are we making a spreadsheet when the intent to have this stuff on the website?
It goes to Dr. Gill first before it comes to the board, so they have to present it to Dr. Gill for her to approve. So it's going to be in that initial step before it gets to civic permits, because they can't enter it technically into civic permits till it's approved fundraiser.
Okay, so
And
we're
that-
talking two different policies. We're talking
Yeah.
fundraiser versus the facility use piece.
Yes.
I have them enter it into civic permits so it can hold the date, so if it does get approved, they don't lose out on their date.
Who puts it in civic permits?
They do, and there's a box option that says, has it been board approved?
it says district
And they
approved
say yes
fundraiser.
or no,
put
and
the
then
date.
when it has, they have to put the date in there.
All this information we're talking about here, that's where it needs to be needs to get caught in civic permits.
No, I think that more than likely the information she's talking about now, as far as the activities, probably needs to be caught prior to permit.
Yes, it's on the spreadsheet to Dr. Gill, and then what happens when they enter it in civic permits, I pull up that Google Doc and I make sure it's in tandem, but it hasn't
The
happened.
spreadsheet to Dr. Gill comes before civic permits?
Correct.
It's
Yeah, it's
more,
kind of almost the
it's
same.
usually in conjunction. I mean, the truth is what happens is that we'll decide we want to do a fundraiser on date X, and we'll go into civic permits, and I'll just book date X, or usually Erica will do it for us.
So one of the things
And
we
then we'll
also
send to
discussed-
Jackie, Jackie will send to
Right,
Gil.
and one of the things we had also discussed is she was wanting to give a 2-week lead time, and I thought, well, wait a minute, they've got to do a 30-day lead time on civic permits. So I'm not quite sure where that's going to lead her on fundraiser requests.
We just discussed, I mean, there was a thing earlier this year to make it so that the lead time as far as fundraising approval was like 3 days. So asking for a 30-minute lead time or a 2-week lead time goes against the
Well-
idea that we change the process so we could get like a
But you're not
3-day
going to start a fundraiser
turnaround.
in 3 days.
Right,
Not
but
typically,
but
but-
at the beginning of the year, they enter in all of their fundraisers for the year.
Have them
So
before.
it's in civic permits. All we're waiting on is the approval from Dr. Gill. And
not-
then,
That's not
Right.
entirely true. We add some. I mean, I've added some, like in the past couple of weeks, we've added a couple
But
new
how far in
ideas.
advance is the fundraiser?
They're out a little ways in most cases.
Yeah,
In
see,
one
so
case,
you
I
meet
definitely
it.
tried to book 2 dates in December, but they were both taken by basketball.
30 days an unreasonable request? Because that's what for the facilities, that's what we're asking everyone to do is 30 days.
I don't think 30 days for facility reservations is necessarily unreasonable. It complicates matters from a fundraising perspective. If your guys' point for an approval was to have the approval done in a faster time, then to add on to that, say, well, yeah, now, like, we got a designee, and the designee can approve your fundraiser, but really now your fundraiser's stuck for 30 days because you can't do anything for another 30 days. I don't think it's going to come into effect very often, but making 30 days a hard and fast rule does sort of defeat the purpose of a streamlined fundraising process.
But it is a hard and fast rule according to the facility use handbook. That's the issue that I
Right,
have.
okay,
is
I see what you're
because We've made it a policy for using a facility, you have to give us 30 days. So,
Well, normally, it also runs into the point of trying to put your dates out there at the beginning of the year. Otherwise, you're not, as you found, you're not gonna be able to find dates in December available for you.
I mean, I found a couple dates, but,
I wonder if
Lori.
the solution's not, look, the deal is we give 30 days because it's also trying to make sure we're giving everyone an opportunity to get certain things. But if WSF wanted to have a fundraiser 2 weeks from now and there's a date open, what can't they ask for? There shouldn't be a hard
That's what I'm
fast rule
saying,
of,
right.
nope, too bad, did make it 30 days. It's more, that 30 days should be more for the reservation process. And that's how I always interpreted was that it was, we're gonna give you 30 days, we get all of our organizations in, you have those 30 days, and then boom, calendars are booked. If you wanna book another date after this, that's fine.
It's on a,
But it's gotta be
it's on a
available.
first come, first serve after that.
Exactly.
That
was the
So maybe
30
that
what I've
just
been
needs
doing.
to be,
Right.
maybe
I'll be
that
honest.
needs to be addressed in our handbook. Because right now it's addressed as 30 days in advance, but if the space is available and it's approved,
We should allow for that. I mean, we really should. It's just
There
like,
was-
oh
I
my
mean,
gosh, I just thought of this neat thing I just saw at this event.
Yeah, the issue
We
was,
should do that.
it was getting through the process to make sure everything was
Exactly
in
right.
order, make
initial
sure.
process,
yeah.
so maybe there's something I can add in there
Right,
after the,
you know?
yeah, I mean, I think I agree. I just feel like if a date's available and a foundation or really any tier one organization has an
Should
idea
apply
that
to
could make us, make some money or whatever, or even just have a good time for the community, seems like being able to push that through as opposed to a 30-day would be
Oh, and
advantageous.
I'm all for that. I just want to make sure that policy-wise,
Yeah.
that it's fair and equitable, that we have, that
But it
it's,
says it for everybody. And
it's
that's what I
consistent
would think it
and-
should be,
and that we
is
state it
once that
correctly.
30 days has gone by, so now again, we've got December booked. If there's a date in December that's available and you wanted to do
becomes
something, we
canceled.
should allow you to do that. Or something gets canceled, you can go, hey, okay, we wanted to do this, or, we should allow for those opportunities.
we just have to
Again,
make
as long
sure
as they're
that.
feasible.
Sure, we just have to make sure that language is in the book, that's all.
Yes.
So
We do that now, I think, but yeah. then maybe
It is
it's
kind of
gonna
the unwritten rule.
that did
All
lead
right.
into a discussion.
I would like
Go
to,
back though.
I think that the high-risk activity thing might warrant slightly more discussion. For two reasons. First, the cooking thing, I'm still a little bit confused on that. Not confused, but I know the idea was that anything not in the kitchen would constitute high risk, but I'm not sure that we necessarily wanted to target like simple things like a warming plate or like a tray of food with like one of the little candles underneath it or something like that. You know what I
You
mean?
know, I agree with you. I think this needs some work. Can we bring this back at the next meeting and actually spend some time on it?
Absolutely.
Because I just saw aircraft.
That's what Tracy had in there.
When are we gonna have an event that has an aircraft at all? I mean, really?
Well, I mean, there's
Unless you got any drones,
but
and now we've got a dozen people in the community
don't
who
get me
actually
started on
actively
drones.
use them.
well, on the plus side, none of the foundations actually have any drones. It's
Yet.
you
So
know,
maybe bring on a
Foundation
future
board members.
agenda
Let's-
item.
Let's bring this as a discussion item, review,
they might have access.
high risk and, what's the other word?
Extreme risk.
Extreme risk. Review, and let's have a discussion about it. And
Absolutely.
What we have here is what Tracy had. We just need to clean it up for us.
It is only a matter of time before drones start getting used by sports organizations as,
Well, and I can tell you right now that from my involvement working at Levi's, that FAA's,
Well, I know FAA is
they're
gonna
getting
crack down,
involved
but-
fast. So
but I
it's-
doubt
you're right,
FAA is
it's
gonna
coming.
have a huge issue over, flight space over the high school, so but at some point, we're gonna need
We're gonna
look
have
at
to
that
address
policy
it.
too, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to address it. I agree.
Okay, one more thing on high-risk activities. So I asked about a tier one organization having a basketball tournament,
Yeah.
and you guys said it was not a high-risk activity, so it should not push them to tier 2A, but right now it does because it is apparently a high-risk activity.
What define athletic event?
I'm pretty sure a basketball game would count.
Because I guess I think of it as that whole, remember the gymnastics? To me, that was like this huge,
Well, this would be a basketball tournament, just.
So we need a definition of athletic.
Right.
athletic event.
Or to cut out certain things if we don't want to charge for certain things. right.
Exactly.
I mean, if it's a parents versus kids basketball game, is that really high risk event? It probably is for the parents, but,
I would say that a basketball
It just
tournament,
seems like each of these items probably need to be defined a little bit more.
I agree. When's your basketball tournament? Is it?
I don't have one, no. I do want to do a dodgeball tournament, actually. That really is one of my goals, like an adult dodgeball tournament, but
Mountain House
I haven't
Flag
scheduled
Football
it yet.
does a
That's high
3-on-3.
risk. Dodgeball's high risk. Someone in the nose.
Mountain House Flag Football did
Oh, we
a
did one in
3-on-3
the,
last year.
in the,
Outside, so
yeah.
because it's outside, it doesn't, so the warming plate outside is not a high risk event?
But Mountain House Flag Football is an outside organization, so they paid the fees and got the
They were
increased
tier 2A anyway.
insurance.
Already-
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you're
they're
right,
outside
you're
courts.
right, okay. Wasn't thinking that, okay.
no worries. Okay, so,
So
yeah,
we,
we'll
we
probably
will,
discuss
we need to
this,
have a
narrow it down.
conversation about that, and we will get those all defined, spend a little time on it.
Hoping to do less of these meetings.
Well, but now we get to get into the minutia, finally. We've been dealing with all this other stuff, we can finally start picking
Said
apart.
that like it's fun.
Well,
Should have invited me. I love
Thank
then
you.
it's, then it's clean, then they can do their job, we don't have to have this exception stuff.
Yes.
Do with minutia all day.
Well, true that. All right, action items, item A, facility use handbook revision, recommendation for LUSD,
Wait, I think you skipped.
what I skipped,
No, you got it.
application? Yeah,
We
we're,
did, I'm sorry, we did AAU membership, MHHS coach application. Was I asleep?
You're on the wrong agenda.
Aha,
We need to remove the old one.
we're good.
Lori's like, what?
Wrong agenda. I was like, what?
Over there.
okay, item A is facility use handbook revision, recommendation for LUSD employee presence at high school events for tier 2A through 3.
I feel like we just discussed this.
We did, but I was putting it as an action item.
Perfect.
But it sounds like
Does
we,
anyone have an issue?
No, but I don't know that we can necessarily approve it until we see the language. You know what I mean? We've agreed we need to add language for tiers 1 through 3 now.
right, sounds
for
like there
district
is, you're right.
supervision. I would rather approve the language when we can see it. I think we've all agreed, though, that we need
Well,
to change the language.
I think
So-
that if we approve the concept, that the board could approve the language. What do you think of that?
I'm okay with that, too.
Yeah,
You
it
guys
says,
have a problem with
yeah, it's fine. So it says, at high school events. Is that going to be in the actual verbiage, you think? Because I feel like when it says at high school events, it's
Isn't this the one that
implying
we
a
also
school
talked about
event.
making it for the gyms?
Yes, the gym,
This is
internal
just gyms, so,
gyms should match
so it will
the
not say,
stadium.
high school events, maybe include the word gyms.
Maybe it should be events at the high school. I don't know. I feel like high school events implies it's an actual event
When's
for
that?
our high school.
I would agree.
Like to me.
Reverse, yeah.
Yeah, events at the high school.
Present, okay.
Well, but
Events
I,
at the high school.
but I would
And-
want to say inside because we don't necessarily need supervision for the soccer field that's between the two baseball fields, the grass, not the baseball fields, because I know we're not.
To be fair, in about 3 months, we might decide we
No,
do
we
need
don't rent those
supervision of the
out at
soccer
all.
fields. We haven't rented them out yet.
I know. I'm just saying, I would hate for us to require supervision of a grass field, that's all.
And we also discussed that it's going to be all tiers, not just 2A through
Yes,
3.
we did.
Right.
I think so.
That needs to be modified as well. Okay, so we approve the concept, and we'll let the board
Yes.
deal with the minutia.
Ooh, public comment time.
Public comment.
What if someone ran through the door right there?
Well, that was short.
Board report, no.
Should shoot over to the
Oh, shit.
podium.
Future agenda topics, I think we had a couple that came up already just during
Did.
discussion. Anything else that you guys would like to add to future items to discuss?
No.
No? Okay.
What date is Star Wars open? I want to schedule it on that day.
December 17th, Star Wars opens, and I will be unavailable for
I
all
predicted
purposes.
December 17th.
I will be unavailable for all purposes that day.
I had to miss Hunger Games, damn
No,
it.
that's not true. That's a lie. No, it is not. It's not a lie because I have promised to get in line at about 5 o'clock for
Disposal
ours.
fees.
That's a Thursday, that's a Thursday anyway.
Trash bins donated.
I'm gonna,
I have an event. I have the 15th. I should put this on the calendar.
Oh, so there's, something just came up for our next agenda. We're gonna talk about, trash disposal fees.
For stadium use, I mean, we were fortunate enough, Mr. Pombo was able to get donated trash bins, but we can't always depend on that. We've had some events that did not have,
Right, and we had to pay to have
and we
a
had to
pickup.
pay for that pickup.
if it's an all-day event, they need to pay. If it's 2 hours, it shouldn't have that big of an impact, I would say. But if it's, the one I can think of off the top of my head is the Junior Mustangs having the field all day. There's no way that's not gonna have an impact on our trash.
Right.
But
But we could charge that fee out of the
if it
facility
was
use
one
collection
game,
as well.
if a soccer team or a football team wanted to rent it for 2 hours, I can't imagine that would have that kind of
No.
impact.
We're looking at the time when they actually used that whole bin, because it cost us,
Oh, absolutely, that's an all-day event, yeah.
I mean, it cost us $280 just to pick it up.
Well, we'll come back, we'll talk about that at our next meeting.
Perfect.
Corey, is our WSF meeting on the 15th?
yes, WSF meeting is on the 15th.
We wanted to skip December and go into January because of the holidays and everything.
So this is
I mean,
Jim's last meeting?
The question is, how important do we feel the high-risk activity discussion is? Especially,
anything-
when do we open the booking stuff for fields?
December 1st to the 15th.
Yeah, well. we're not
December
gonna-
1st to the
We're not gonna,
10th.
we're not gonna meet before that.
Okay, well then, the only, okay, so, let's see, 15th, did I hear 15th?
15th's out.
Oh,
Yeah.
14th?
I'm available the 14th.
14th or
December
17th?
That sounds good.
First of all,
Playoffs, right? No Monday Night Football.
Yeah,
Be right with
should be
that.
fine.
It's a joke, folks.
It's fine. We got a big screen here. We'll just bring like a Chromecasters and we'll just play it right there.
You
It's
said
fine.
14th or the 17th?
14th to 17th? Yeah. it's-
Okay, well, the 17th is
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Okay, my bad.
We had that discussion.
What?
You can have the
Okay.
meeting, but this is actually my family event. We do this.
I skipped Hunger Games. You're skipping Star Wars.
Okay.
We scheduled the 17th.
Can't. No, the 14th works fine for me.
Star Wars broke the internet.
14th?
Yes, it did.
How about 14th for
Games
you?
did not break
Yes,
the
14th is good.
Corey, 14th?
Yeah, 14th's good.
Oh, you got
December 14th,
14th, 14th it is,
And then
30.
6:30.
that'll be Jim's last meeting with us.
Yes.
So this is sort of a strange question, but will Jim's replacement just take an immediate spot on the board? Or the committee or whatever you want to call it?
Yes. Okay. Whoever that, it's the position.
It is, it's just the, okay, I wasn't sure. Cool. We'll miss you.
And then actually, there may be different committee members. Well, probably
No,
not.
not
Oh,
December,
not December.
January.
So the
Oh,
board,
So,
Am I
yeah,
getting
what is
evicted?
that?
so the board has the reorg
All of us.
in December.
Yeah, we do a board
Yeah,
reorg in
the board
December and
reorgs in December, and then
for January.
it would be up to the president to make new appointments for committees if they change, I don't know.
Then we definitely want something in January or in December, since we're on the same vein about the high-risk things before the chance that we sort of lose
How does it
like
work
the
with
work
the
we're doing.
committee? Them?
I wouldn't anticipate
It,
meeting.
it's up to it's at the discretion of the president.
Right?
Sorry, Eric, but you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Oh, no.
I don't think so.
Okay, so we have a date on that. Let's adjourn at 7:32. Not bad.
Considering we